Hello everyone. Thank you for joining in today's event. It's exactly 7:31. We will give a couple of more minutes for the larger group of audience to join in before we start the event. So we will be starting the event somewhere around 7:30, 7:35. Good evening, folks. Good evening, Saurav. Good evening, Tarun. Good evening. Let me quickly give you a little overview of what is going to happen in today's session, who will be taking today's event. So, first of all, who am I? My name is Payal. I work here at Scalar as one of the senior associates. Part of my job is to plan all the master classes, all the free classes that happens across Scalar. From conducting these events to, from deciding on what topics to do, all of that. Who will be the instructor? I'll be just moderating today's session and taking some of the questions which you have in mind. Next, who will be the instructor for today? Today's instructor will be none other than Pulkit Aneja, who is one of our lead instructor here at Scalar. He has previous experience working as a data scientist too at Meesho and data scientist at Amazon. So he comes with a lot of experience where he talks about in general how to start your career if you're coming from a non-data science field. Rishabh, can you hear me? Is everybody able to hear me, see me? Guys, can you hear me? Can you see me? Okay, amazing. Rishabh, I think I'm not sure if he's able to hear me or not, but if you are, please check your network. Okay. So Pulkit Aneja will be taking his class. He has taught more than 6,000 students with more than 800 hours of teaching. Some of his students are right now working in companies like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and Swiggy. He comes with a lot of experience in today's event. He will be joining us in a minute or two. By the time he joins us, I want to quickly check. Guys, is this the first time that you're joining any of these Scalar events? If this is the first time, then I want you guys to write yes in the chat section. If this is not the first time, then you can write no in the chat section. Yes, if this is the first time. No, if this is not the first time. Okay, guys, amazing. I can see a lot of people here coming, as a first-time learner to Scalar. So what I'll do is I'll quickly give you a little overview before we begin the event today. One second. Guys, are you able to see my screen? Which says Scalar Masterclass. Yeah. So, first of all, welcome everyone to Scalar Masterclass. There are a few guidelines that we will talk about, and I'll also take you through the complete the complete application, like give you complete information about the application that we're using today. Guys, can you please guess? I can't hear anything. Please check your internet. Guys, can you please tell me what application are we doing today? Anyone? Any guesses? What's the name of the application that we're using today? Amazing. Like first two answers are completely right. Thank you, Sai, for being the first person to answer it. Yes, it is called Drona. Drona is a application that has been developed by our engineers in-house, which means the scale engineers has developed this platform for all our master classes and free classes and regular classes. We use this platform. Okay, there are a few guidelines that I'll request you guys to follow. First, please use a laptop or a desktop. It gives you a better experience, right? You're here to learn, and in a phone it becomes difficult. The whole learning process, because you will be not able to see the chat section, you'll not be able to see the scale, instructor face properly, all of that. Okay, for better experience, I'll always ask you to switch to Chrome browser. Please disable any ad blockers and VPNs. Ensure your internet stability at least 20 Mbps. That is something that I'll highly recommend. Please use your earphones during the session. We often see a lot of people start complaining that, I'm not able to hear, sir. Can you be a bit louder? Please understand, it becomes really difficult on our part to speak for 2.5 hours in a very loud pitch. Please, this is the pitch that I'm, bringing out of my mouth. Is like really, really tough for me to maintain it for the next couple of minutes also. So I will, highly recommend if you can, use the earphones. Next, this is ideally how your screen should look like. Then there's a notice board where all the important, the relevant information during these sessions will be flowing in, right? So keep checking your notice board for the important informations. Next is the people tab, where you can see number of people who have joined. Then there is a chat section, which will be used for interaction. Questions tab is to ask any questions or doubt you have. Next is thumbs up and thumbs down button. We guys will be using it for next of these events, next of these activities that we'll be doing. So keep using this. This is poll. We will be doing a lot of polls during the session. Please stay active if you're looking for some of the free resources that we have in mind to share. Let's begin our learning journey. Keep upscaling. Remember, it's really important in today's time to upscale, right? So are we ready to take this event ahead? If yes, then there are 3 more things that I'll mention before I pass the session to Pulkit. Number 1, people who have doubt regarding the recording of this session, unfortunately, we will not be providing any recording. Of this session, if you are the paid on the enroll user of Scalar, then you will be getting the recording in that dashboard. If you're not, don't worry, we will be sharing the notes. Where will these notes be shared? Notes will be shared in the WhatsApp groups that we guys are already part of. If you're not a part of WhatsApp group, don't worry, we will be sharing the WhatsApp group links. You can join. Understand, we will not charge any money. We will not, spam any other messages other than, the notes in the WhatsApp groups. Number 3, certificate. If you have doubt regarding certificates will be shared to you during the event, towards the end of the class. I hope we are good to go about this. Now I will quickly pass this session to, Pulkit. Pulkit, if you are here, can you please take it over from here?
Welcome everyone to today's masterclass on transitioning from a non-data science to data science role. Thank you so much for taking the time out from your very busy schedules and taking the time to upskill. Let me start with a very quick introduction about myself, and then we will get started with the class. So my name is Pulkit. I think I have a feeling that you guys must have already received an introduction video from me that was shared by my co-host. But I'll just quickly introduce myself once. My name is Pulkit, and I'll talk quickly a little bit about my career, and I will also request my co-host to maybe share my LinkedIn profile with all of you. If I give a very brief summary of my career so far, I finished my master's in 2017, and since then I've been working as a data scientist. I started my career with a startup called Synaptic System. This was a startup in the fintech domain. I worked there for 2 years, and after that, I started working for Amazon. At Amazon, a lot of my roles and responsibilities were revolving around forecasting, prediction, and forecasting models. We will talk about that in today's masterclass as well. After that, because my profile shifted towards e-commerce domain, right? After that, I got the opportunity to work at Meesho. And finally, because I wanted to do something in the education sector, I started working with Scalar as an instructor and as well as a data scientist. So that's a bit about my journey. Okay, great. So, all right, with that, we will get started with the session for today. So let me see let me see how enthusiastic we all are for the session. So give me a thumbs up if you're enthusiastic for getting started with the session. Awesome. Good to see the level of enthusiasm. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that level of enthusiasm. Great. So before we get started, right, I have been seeing some questions revolving around Scalar. So let me do one thing very quickly. I do see a lot of different questions revolving around Scalar. Can you please repeat? Okay. Yeah. Let me get started. Okay. So before we get going, I want to quickly call out one thing. Let's first share the title for today very quickly. So we are going to be discussing transitioning from non-data science to data science role. Okay, so that is going to be the fundamental discussion that we will be having today. Now, before we get started, I just want to quickly call out one very important thing. That the approach that we will have with respect to today's session will not be restricted to one kind of domain or some other domain. We are going to be having very general discussion in the sense of where if somebody has not done any sort of data science or they are curious about this field, how they can transition and getting into it, right? But before I do that, it's also very important to call out that everybody's requirements can be very, very unique, right? Which means it's very hard to design a one model fits all, right? That is what the agenda and the purpose of today's masterclass is, to have a generalist discussion. But everybody's requirements are very unique and very special. For example, somebody might be coming from a software field. For them, the journey into data science will be very different. Somebody who's from marketing and has not done any coding, for them, the journey is going to be completely different. So with that, what I'll be doing now is I will be launching a poll for you guys, and this poll is an excellent opportunity for you guys to talk to one-on-one counselors who can help you out with this identification of whether data science is the right field for you and how the journey for transitioning from non-data science to data science would look like specifically for you, for your specific requirements. And I hope the idea behind this is very clear, right? The simple idea or the reason behind this is that I, talking from this direction, can only give you a very specific broad level idea. But for your specific requirements, you can talk to these counselors. They are excellent at what they do, right? This is going to be absolutely free discussion. You can talk to them. You can discuss what your aspirations, career aspirations are, what your goals are, and they will be able to guide and craft a plan for you as to how you can move into this particular field. So you can click on yes if this is something that would be valuable to you. Go ahead and do that. And while this poll gets over in the last couple of seconds, after that, we will get started with the session. Okay, perfect. So now we'll go ahead and get started with the session for today. We'll start with a generalist discussion like we called out. Okay, let's go ahead and start with it. So the idea over here is as follows, that we will be learning about transitioning from non-data science to data science. So for that, it becomes quite important for us to be able to, at the very least, identify what data science is all about or what data analytics is all about. So what are your general thoughts on this particular field? I want to hear from all of you. You can write in the chat. What do you think is data science? Or what do you think is data analytics? Let me see some responses. seeing some really good responses from people. Okay, so let me summarize the responses that I'm getting. A lot of responses point in the direction of extracting insights from data. How many of you agree with that general thought? Extracting insights from data, right? Everybody agrees. But there is a small difference between what data scientists do and what data analysts do, right? So what we will do is we will start the session by firstly quickly summarizing the various data roles that are out there, because this is something that I've seen is quite confusing for a lot of people in terms of what are the roles and responsibilities of these different roles. So let's start the session with that discussion very quickly. So first we'll talk about the role of data analyst. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. Also, let's quickly identify all the different target roles that we have. So on one hand, we have data analyst. Okay. On the other hand, we have data scientist, which is something that has drawn everybody to this masterclass, right? This is what we ultimately want to know about. And there's also a role called as data engineer. Correct? These are the various kinds of roles that we have when it comes to data roles. I'm not saying that it is only limited to this. These days we have some other roles also that are coming up. For example, artificial intelligence engineer. At the right time, we will talk about that as well. Okay. But coming into picture and talking about the data analyst role, let's understand what this is all about. And also let's understand some alternate roles that we see for this specific profile. So data analyst role you'll also hear some alternate names for this role. One of those is BI engineer. Okay. Another thing that you will hear is business analyst. So all these roles are very, very closely related to each other. Okay. The data analyst, BI engineer, and business analyst, they are all very closely related to each other. And let's quickly get a sense of what these sessions are going to be all about. Okay. So the data analyst role basically is about what you guys defined it as, which is extract useful information from data. So in this role, what the focus is on, you have the data available for a big, large enterprise. Okay. And your responsibility is to utilize or consume this data to be able to improve business in some way or the other. Now, improving business can mean a lot of different things. For example, improving business could mean improve customer experience. Very important, right? Amazon as a company specifically pays a lot of focus to it. And my role at Amazon specifically was in the customer service domain itself, right? We were responsible for ensuring how customer can get the best experience when they are onboarded with Amazon and throughout their journey with Amazon. So that could be one way of defining how to improve business. Another way could be improve profit, right? Improve the bottom line of a company. That could be another way. What else comes to the mind? Any other thing that comes to the mind? So we have talked about better customer experience. We have also talked about better profit or improved profit. What else? When we say we want to improve business, what else do we want to do? Okay. Again, seeing many different answers, and I would say not all answers are completely correct, but they are not wrong either, right? You guys are headed in the right direction, but we have to really identify the problem that we are targeting at. Okay. For example, one appropriate answer that I saw in the chat was customer retention. That's a very good thing, right? Customer experience is one thing. Customer experience means the customer is always happy using your product. Customer retention means that are you able to avoid letting your customer leave the platform? Okay. Now, this is a very important problem for all your OTT platforms. For example, your Sony Live, your Hotstar, your Netflix, your Amazon Prime. They all really, really care about the fact that can we somehow make sure that the customer keeps subscribing? Can we make sure that they continue using our platform? Okay, so this way you can identify many different problems, but the overall blanket of the problems is, can we improve business? And improving business can be defined in many different ways. Okay, as we proceed in the lecture, we will talk about more such things. But let's come to the next role that we have, which is data scientist. So what are we trying to do as a data scientist? That is a very important thing that we would like to identify over here. Okay, and this is going to be the core of our discussion as well. So let me do one thing before we go to the data scientist part. Let's quickly talk about the data engineer part, because that is also very closely related to the role of a data analyst. Let me tell you why. So as a data analyst, you are essentially extracting information, consuming that information, and drawing useful insights from that information so that you can ultimately improve business. And improving business, like we said, could mean a lot of things. It could mean customer retention. It could mean improving customer experience. It could mean improving the profit of the company. So it could mean a lot of different things. On the other hand, a data engineer, what they are doing is they are basically responsible for creating data workflows. Now, this is a very interesting word, right? Workflows. So let's understand what do we mean by this. Data engineers are basically focusing on enabling data analysts and scientists with the right kind of data at the right time, which means a company is being bombarded with data from various different sources. For example, if we talk about Amazon, Amazon is receiving one data from, let's say, all the orders that are being generated. There could be another stream of data that is coming in from all the customers who are recently joining the platform. There could be another data which is coming from suppliers. So as a data scientist and analyst, you might require all of this data to be able to run your analysis. And for that, it becomes extremely crucial and important that you can unite all this data, make sure that this data does not have any mistakes, right? And do it continuously and at regular intervals. And to do that, you need a person who is responsible for taking care of all this data flowing from one source to the other. And that's what we mean by building data workflows. So what data engineers are doing is they're automating data pipelines. They are basically building these data pipelines. What that means is how data flows from one source to the other. And while this data is flowing, they are also ensuring that a certain quality of data reaches the final output, right? They make sure that the data is of the highest quality, of the highest standards, and also it is accurate at the same time. Okay, so these are the kind of things that data engineers are working on. They are building data pipelines and data workflows. Now let's come to the core of today's discussion, which is that of a data scientist. Now, why did I even talk about data analyst and data engineer in this discussion? One might wonder. Well, one reason for that obviously was that all these are different data roles, and it's very important to have clarity of what these different roles look like. But in addition to that, it is also important that we are able to understand that what is the connection or connectivity between these different roles. And from that perspective, what I can tell you is the role of a data scientist is basically that of a data analyst. So a data scientist is taking the responsibilities of data analyst, or they are performing all the duties that a data analyst typically performs and much more, right? So one thing that people often lose track of is that they always think that to become a data scientist, you have nothing to do with the roles and responsibilities of a data analyst. And that is not true at all, right? Whatever a data analyst does, a data scientist is expected to be able to do all of that. And in addition, do some other things as well. So what is this much more? We will be defining very soon what this much more comprises. But that means to become a high quality, highly established data scientist, you have to also be able to become a data analyst. That is one very, very important aspect that a lot of people miss out on, and we will be focusing on this aspect as well. So data analyst, broadly, we have defined the roles and responsibilities. We will now also deeply define these roles and responsibilities for a data analyst and the much more part that a data scientist requires. Everybody with me so far? You can leave thumbs up or thumbs down based on whether you are understanding everything that we have said so far? Okay, perfect. Great. So let's proceed with our discussion to the next segment then and understand what a data analyst is typically doing. And then we will talk about the much more part as well. So let's talk about the roles and responsibilities of a data analyst, or what are the different skills that you need as a data analyst. Let's start talking about that. Okay. So as a data analyst, your ultimate responsibility is to make sense of data. That is well established. Now let's talk about how you do that. How a person can become a data analyst and what are the different skills that they need. So the very first and one of the most important things that you will require or need to know as a data analyst will be SQL. Okay. And SQL basically stands for structured query language. How many of you are familiar with this word SQL? You have heard this term at some point or the other. Okay, let me also see how many of you believe that you know what SQL is. Like you can use SQL, you have used it in the past, you have some familiarity with it. You can leave a thumbs up. Others can maybe leave a thumbs down. Okay, mixed reactions is what I would say. Some people know, some people do not know, and that's totally okay, right? What is important is now you know that this is something you need to learn to become a data analyst, right? So SQL is basically the very first interaction that you have with data. So data is always in some or the other database, correct? And to be able to extract data from that database or to be able to analyze data from that database, you need to learn this skill called as SQL. This helps you to interact with database or DBMS. So it always becomes the very first entry point for you to interact with data. Why? Because data is generally residing in these big databases. Okay. A lot of times we think that data is residing in Excel sheets and spreadsheets. And while that is not entirely false, but think about a company like Amazon, think about banks like HDFC, like Standard Chartered, right? Like HSBC. Do you think they can have all their data just in spreadsheets? We all know, right? Spreadsheets have so many different problems. For example, we know spreadsheets cannot handle data after a certain amount. After 100,000 rows, you will start seeing that all your spreadsheets like Google Sheets and Excel will start slowing down. So we know they are not the most efficient way of handling data. And that's why we have these huge databases. So to interact with databases, the language you need to know is SQL. Okay. Analogy that I can give you over here is if DBMS is a car, if DBMS is like a car, SQL is like the skill of driving. So to be able to use the car efficiently, you need to know driving. And that knowing that skill of driving is equivalent to knowing SQL when it comes to databases. I hope this point is clear to everybody. Okay. Let's go ahead and understand a bit more about other kinds of things that you might want to know or that will be important to know. So right now I'm emphasizing a lot on SQL, as you can see, right? Very heavy emphasis on SQL I'm giving. Okay. Now, why am I doing this? There are some reasons behind this. Okay. There are some reasons behind this. So the idea is by the way, I do see some questions around some of the other tools and technologies. I do see some questions popping up here and there about something like pandas. Don't worry about it, guys. I will be addressing all those things very soon. So all of that is going to be the part of our today's discussion. Okay. So don't worry about all those questions. I will be answering everything. Okay. I'll just need a little bit of patience from you guys. Everything will pop up at the right time. Right. So with that, let me continue with the session. So we have talked about SQL and why it is important to interact with DBMS. And the other thing about SQL, which is very important, is that your databases have slowly and gradually are being upgraded and they are turning into many different kinds of aspects. For example, in today's day and age, we not only have DBMS, but we also have what we call as data warehouses. Okay. So in short, data warehouses are even larger capacity databases. Just think of it like this, that data warehouses have the capacity to hold even larger amounts of data. Okay. We also have this technology called as big data that has emerged over the last couple of years. So good thing about SQL is that SQL has seamlessly integrated with all these other technologies. What that means is that SQL is not only capable of interacting with DBMS, but it is also capable of interacting with data warehouse, with big data, etc. Okay. And now again, I can give you an analogy over here, right? The analogy here would be that if you become good with the skill of driving, for example, if you become good with the skill of driving, then you can drive a car, but essentially it means you can even drive a truck, right? Now, a lot of you might find this particular statement that I made questionable, right? How many of you find the statement that I made questionable? Whether learning to drive also means you can drive a truck. Okay. So again, we have like a 50-50 response, right? And basically a mixed response. Some feel comfortable with that statement. Some do not feel comfortable with that statement. Well, all I want to say is in a truck also, there's a steering wheel, there are gears, there's accelerator, there's brake, and all those aspects are exactly the same. It's just that the size is big, right? That's the only difference if you think about it. So of course it will take some practice, but the skills are transferable, right? I hope now you guys can agree with the point that I have made. Okay. And the same can be true for a bus as well. So that's the idea, that once you learn SQL, all the modern technologies that are being developed, they are being developed keeping in mind that people who have traditionally been using databases can adopt these technologies very easily. Otherwise, there will be so much friction, right? So just imagine if today a new vehicle was coming out, let's say a company was launching a completely new kind of car, and the car has best features, the most amazing features, but at the same time, they are expecting you to learn driving in a completely new way. Do you think anybody will drive it, or anybody will be interested in buying such a car? Right? We are all able to unanimously agree that no, nobody will be interested in such a car, right? Why? Because there will be so much friction. Why would you make people learn a skill completely new? That's why every time a new technology comes up, they also make sure that the baseline of the way that technology is supposed to be used stays more or less the same. There isn't a lot of modification. And I can tell you my personal example also from here, right? A lot of people are always reaching out and asking about tools like Spark. Okay. Again, it's a new, let me not say it's a new tool, but it's a technology that is used to handle big data. Okay. And a lot of people are always very anxious when it comes to learning these kind of new technologies. They'll always keep asking, will we be able to learn Spark or not? Especially people who join Scalar, right? And when they learn SQL, I basically teach SQL. In fact, one of my SQL batches is currently also going on. So they are always curious and they are always asking, that you're teaching us SQL, but tomorrow new technology might come up. What will we do? So my personal story over here is that when I was interviewing for Misho, right? At that time, I did not know Spark. Okay. But I was very good at SQL. My SQL has been strong since Amazon, I would say, right? So I've been using a lot of SQL and my SQL foundation was very strong. So I was able to convince in the interview with the Misho team, I was able to tell them that, my SQL is very strong and I know that is the foundation for Spark. Spark essentially works. If you want to write any Spark queries, they are nothing but small modifications over SQL queries. So I told them that my SQL is good enough and that means I will be able to learn Spark very easily. And even they were in agreement with this, right? So once I started working there, I was able to learn Spark also. And after working also, I realized that the foundation, if your SQL foundation is good, you will have no problem in dealing with all these new age technologies. Okay. So that's the point I want to make. And that's why I marked SQL as star as well. This is one of the most important skills one should be learning to become a data analyst. Okay. One quick activity you all can try, in fact, is just go on Google, not right now, but later, just go on Google and type out data analyst jobs and all the profiles that pop up in front of you. Just go ahead and try to search through them, right? And see the skills that they're asking for. Just look for 10 top, any 10, pick any 10 and look for the skills they require. And you will see SQL appearing in at least 8 out of 10. Okay. So that marks the importance of this particular skill that you need to learn to become a successful data analyst. Now, what else? So a lot of your job you will be able to accomplish after knowing SQL, but there are other things also that become very important to learn. And another skill that becomes important to learn is Python. Okay. Another skill that becomes important to learn is Python. So what's the idea behind Python? Let's understand. Well, Python is a programming language, and the beauty of this programming language is that it is one of the easiest programming languages to learn. Okay. Anybody in this masterclass itself also, if they are coming with any experience in traditional programming languages like C++, Java, etc., I'm pretty sure they will also agree that Python is relatively simpler, right, in comparison to all these other languages. And that is indeed the reason. Okay, I can already see a lot of people, calling out yes in the chat as well as in the thumbs up, thumbs down. So the idea behind this is that Python is a very, very easy language to learn, and the ease of the language has made its adoption wide among people who don't come from programming backgrounds. Okay, so understand all the data fields, right? All the data fields, data analyst, business analyst, data scientist, data engineer, these are the only fields where you will find people who do not have a very conventional technical background also working in this field. You will see a lot of, for example, MBAs working in these fields. You'll also see a lot of people from other backgrounds, right? Business background or some other background working in these fields. And the reason for that is this, that the language that is needed to work with these technologies is Python, and that is the simplest of the languages. Python, I always believe, is the language that I can teach to anybody. That is my personal hunch over this language. If somebody tells me, can you teach C++ or Java? Well, I can, but I would expect some background from those people. Whereas Python does not require a background in computer science or IT or anything of that nature. That's what makes it so beautiful. Okay. And because of its ease of nature, there are so many vast number of libraries that have been created and built on top of Python, especially in context of the field of data and AI. And that's why it becomes widely popular in this field. So just highlighting some things about Python, its simplicity. It has a great support. I will explain the meaning of what we mean by support. And also the fact that it is open source makes it very, very popular. Okay, so let me address these terms. How many of you know these terms like open source? How many of you understand what is open source? You can put a thumbs up or thumbs down. Let's see. Okay, not many. Okay, again a mixed response. Some say yes, some say no. So the idea is that open source basically means that the language is firstly freely available to use. Okay, it is not owned by any company or any group. It's freely available to use, and it also means that anybody can go ahead and contribute towards its development. Right? That is also a very, very important aspect here, which means if you think that Python has some drawbacks, some limitations, if you are able to realize that, you can go ahead and put advancements into it. And there's a community that handles it. Your community will approve whatever advancements you are proposing, whatever advancements you're trying to do, the community will approve. And if the community approves, everybody will start using your modified version of Python. So that is the beauty of it. It sounds simple when I'm saying it in words. It's not that simple. It takes a lot of effort to contribute to open source projects. But the idea is that it's freely available to use. And by and large, community is responsible for its development and its improvement. Okay, that's the idea. The word support over here means that if you face any problems in Python, you can very easily find solution for it. There's a wide community that is using it. So anytime you face a problem, there are websites like Stack Overflow. There are websites like Stack Overflow. You can simply go on these websites and search for any problem that you face, right? And you will be able to find your answers over there. Any Python problem you're facing any errors, you're facing any issues, just go ahead and try to search those errors or issues. And there's a very good chance that you will end up finding a solution for it over Stack Overflow itself. So again, these are some of the things that make it great. Now, as a data analyst, what do we need to learn in Python? Well, one thing is have a good basic foundation of Python. The other thing is to learn some important libraries, right? Now, I'll again give an analogy to make you understand what do we mean by this term library. So think of it in the following way that uh, how many of you have seen these movie series? I'm not saying all the movies, but any movie in the series of Fast and Furious. Right? They are very, very famous, very popular series of movies where car racing is happening and robbery and all those kind of things are happening. Very sensational movies. A lot of great actors have worked in these movies. Okay. Some people say they have seen, some people say they have not seen. That's okay. But the idea basically is that in these movies, you will often see that you have a normal car and then they will modify these cars and fit all kinds of, nitro boosters and different kinds of modifications to make those cars run faster. So basically, the idea is that there are normal cars and then you can modify those cars and put some add-ons on top of it to make it do certain kind of tasks much better. Same is the case with libraries or modules in Python. Okay. So in Python, we have libraries and modules, and the purpose of these libraries and modules is that they will make it easy for you to do certain kinds of tasks. And when we say certain kinds of tasks, we are always interested in tasks that data scientists and analysts need to work on. And some of these libraries which become very, very important to learn are libraries like NumPy, Pandas, sklearn, okay, and there are also other libraries like PyTorch, Keras. So we will have a quick discussion about all of these, right? Just to give you guys a sense. So as a data analyst, it's extremely important to have good command over the first two libraries. As a data analyst, it is extremely crucial to have a good command over the first two libraries, specifically NumPy and Pandas. And the reason for that is that these are libraries that help you in crunching numbers and crunching data. So any data that you have, you can load that data in Python and be able to do all kinds of data-oriented jobs on top of that data using these libraries through Python. So these libraries will expedite the speed at which you can perform the various kinds of analysis. In fact, the beauty of a library like NumPy basically means numerical Python. So what NumPy essentially does for you is it helps you to do calculations on very large data at a very, very high speed. That's the beauty of it. Okay. In fact, when we teach NumPy at Scalar, the very first experiment that we always try to show to people is that if you have an Excel sheet and you were trying to do some very basic formula or calculation on that Excel sheet, but that Excel sheet has 1 lakh rows, and if the same calculation you were trying to do through Python using NumPy, it will be like really, really fast in comparison to the Excel output. That is what we try to showcase. In fact, we don't do this experiment with 100,000 rows. We actually do this experiment with 1 million rows. Okay, so you can already imagine how long it would take for a simple formula like whatever is the value in row plus 1 in Excel or any other spreadsheet to take. Whereas if you do the same in NumPy, it's like at a skyrocket speed. So that's what is the point of a library like NumPy. And Pandas, overall what it does is it extends all the things that you can probably do in Excel within Python, right? And the main thing we need to understand here is achieving scale, being able to do a data processing on very, very large amounts of data. That's the central idea over here. And a lot of you are also talking about the fact that, in Excel, you can do graphs and all as well. Well, you can do the same through Python also. In Python, we also have libraries. For example, there's a library called as matplotlib. Okay, there's also another library called as Seaborn. And by the way, there is no limitation to these libraries. In fact, even you and I can today go and create a completely new Python library. Okay, it all depends on how much of a particular library people are using, how much they are used to a particular library. That's what it essentially boils down to. So the libraries that I'm calling out are the essential libraries that every data analyst or data scientist are using. Okay, so this is what is important over here. Now, let's come down to the other three libraries that we have called out, sklearn, pytorch, and keras, and we will quickly talk about these as well, very, very quickly. So, we will talk about these later also, by the way. We will talk about these later also, but I will give you a brief about these libraries very, very quickly. Firstly, let me also call out that these are libraries that you use for visualization. Viz is a short form that I'm writing, which basically means being able to do visualization, which means being able to plot graphs. Okay. Now let's talk about these other libraries, these three. And what is the importance of these three libraries? Why I have noted these down? And the reason is because these three libraries will act as a gateway for you to turn or transition from a data analyst to a data scientist. What that basically means is that sklearn is a library that you use to perform machine learning. We have not talked about this yet, what machine learning is. I will be very soon calling this out to you guys, what is machine learning. But hear me out for a second. So sklearn is a library used for machine learning. Then you have PyTorch and Keras, again, two different libraries. And the purpose is to be able to do deep learning. There are also other libraries within Python itself that can be used to perform other kinds of things as well. For example, you also have a library called as LangChain. Okay. And this is a library that helps you to do work on AI. Very specifically, it helps you to do work on generative AI. This is basically the kind of AI that is becoming very, very popular around you, right? What that basically means is all the ChatGPT kind of stuff that you see, you can actually interact with ChatGPT through Python using libraries like LangChain. So my point basically is that Python is a must-know tool if you want to get into the field of data, right? All these different things that you want to do, basically Python will enable you to do those, right? All those things can be done through these various libraries. Okay, great. So I hope so far we are going good. Everybody's clear with whatever I've called out, right? You do remember I called out Spark also at some point earlier, right? I just want to make a very quick mention that to be able to work with Spark using Python, there's a library called as PySpark. So I hope now you can get the point, right? That Python is a gateway to any kind of AI, machine learning, data technology that you want to use. So Python definitely becomes a must tool, and your journey into this world of data science can be slow and gradual. That is also very important. A lot of times what happens is, okay, let's do a very quick poll to understand where people are in terms of the discussion that we have been having so far. How many of you are already feeling overwhelmed with the information I've thrown at you guys? Is anybody overwhelmed, or are you going fine? You're like, okay, fair enough. We are understanding everything, but it's not overwhelming. Okay, again, I see a very 50-50 response. A lot of people feel, yes, it is indeed overwhelming, right? So let me call out one thing very, very quickly. Just imagine what your life has been so far, right? You have been learning so many different skills and technologies, and just imagine how you would learn anything today that you had learned 12 or 13 years back. One thing that you would appreciate about yourself is that you had the patience and the time to learn and acquire those skills. The problem with today is that we have all lost that patience because of living in this Instagram reels and YouTube shorts era. We are having this need or knack of learning technology at a bullet train speed. That is the problem. Nothing that I've called out over here, it definitely seems overwhelming. But why is there an expectation to learn all of this in one day, right? The masterclass today is a gateway for you guys to understand all these different tools and technologies and give you guys a framework in which you can go ahead and learn. But the expectation has to be the same that is there with anything that we do in life, right? To build a nice body, you go to the gym consistently for 1 year and then you see results, right? Same way when a baby is born, that it takes 9 months to make a baby, right? So same way for you to learn data science or data analysis, it's going to take some time. So I do understand why you're overwhelmed, but at the same time, if you just understand from this masterclass the different things that are there, you can craft a plan by yourself, or you can take Scalar's help to, take up this journey, right? We at Scalar teach all these technologies slowly and steadily. That's the beauty of the thing that we do, right? We teach Scalar taking about 1 to 2 months. We teach Python over several months. So that's the idea, or that's the strategy we use to help people learn. And of course, different people have different needs. Some people will have familiarity with certain topics. For them, the journey can be faster. For example, certain people can say, we already know SQL, we will skip that and we will directly jump to Python. Well, that is again something that you can do. But generally, if you're starting from the very scratch, this is how the journey has to be. And one thing should be very clear to all of you at this point. Okay. What am I talking about? I'm about to talk about the fact that it should be clear that to become a successful data scientist, your journey will start by becoming a successful data analyst. How many of you are clear with this particular point? You first become a data analyst, or at least acquire the skills needed to become a data analyst, and slowly and gradually move in the other direction. Okay. Everybody who's not coming with any background and directly wants to become a data scientist, that I personally feel itself is not the right expectation. Why should a company trust you? Right? You have to build that trust with them. You first have to do the kind of job which is easier to do, right? And that means you first become a data analyst with a company, show them that you have the drive, show them you have the passion and energy, show them that you can accurately create results from the data, and then they will be happy to transition you to a higher role like a data scientist or a machine learning engineer. So that's how the journey has to be for you guys. Okay, just keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and understand the other kinds of tools and technologies that are required. And we will, so I hope you have already started seeing that we are already discussing things that are required by a data scientist also, right? But we are not done yet describing the entire journey of that of a data analyst. So let's come back to that point and let's understand the other kinds of tools and technologies that are a must to become a great data analyst. And the next thing that we will be talking about is this art of being able to create visualizations. And another way to describe this is called as dashboarding. So let's talk about this very quickly, right? So what do we mean by this term visualization or dashboarding? Well, the idea over here is that when you have data, when you're working as a data analyst, a major part of your responsibility is to be able to show meaningful data or meaningful insights from data to your stakeholders. These stakeholders could be anything. They could be your clients. They could also be your managers. They could also be, the top level managers of a company. Could be anyone. And they would always want to look at the simplest form of the data, right? Which means they would want to look at data which gives them a very good understanding of what's going on within their company or within their team. Okay. A simple example that comes to my mind with respect to this is the Shark Tank episodes. How many of you have seen Shark Tank? Okay. Some people say yes, some people say no. Unfortunately, the only drawback that I see with Shark Tank is that the episodes are in Hindi. So that could be one reason why many people are saying no to this, and maybe it's not available in their own languages. So that could be one reason you have not seen it. But I would highly recommend you to go and watch, if not Indian Shark Tank, the Shark Tank from America. It gives you a very good idea of what's going on, how people are building companies and all, but that's a discussion for another time. The central idea that I want to communicate is that whenever these startup founders or businessmen, they come and try to pitch their company to the shark, the sharks are always interested in some metrics. They're always interested to know how much profit your company has done in the last few months, what's going on. So they will ask a few different metrics, right? These are typically the metrics that people are also checking in the stock market. But the idea is that there has to be the easiest possible way to communicate some of the metrics of your company. And that typically happens through visualization. Now, visualization again is not a very, very tricky topic in itself. But if you can be good at storytelling and visualization, then your dashboards can be appreciated by your entire company and by your stakeholders. So for this, again, it becomes important to learn certain skills, and those skills I would say would be firstly Excel, because simple things you definitely have to know, right? There's no escape from simple things. So how many of you are comfortable creating some charts in Excel? Let's see. Okay, most people say they are. Some people say they are not, right? I would be, I would myself agree that there was a point where I was not very comfortable with a tool like Excel, because I come from a computer science and IT background, and often we miss out on these simple things. Like when I was working at Amazon, people often used to be surprised that, you're so good with things like SQL and Python, but how come you do not know Excel? Because all my other teammates, they were from other backgrounds and they were really good at Excel. So eventually I learned it, right? But the idea is there is no escape from learning the simple things, because it is very important, as sometimes it's not worth it taking up tricky and complicated technology. Sometimes easy things are more than enough. So it's important to know this. But at the same time, because we are moving in the world of big data and we might want better ways to visualize data, there are certain different tools that are available in the market. And some of those tools are Tableau. Okay, you can look up all these tools online. There's also something called as Power BI. And these two have a very big market share when it comes to visualization tools. But apart from these, there are some other things are also available. Some not so popular ones are Looker and QuickSight. Okay. But the prominent market is captured by tools like Tableau and Power BI. So the idea over here is that why do we need to learn one of these tools? Well, one is because they very seamlessly integrate with different kinds of data sources available in your company, right? No matter what kind of technology your company is using for storing their data, Tableau and Power BI can easily and smoothly connect with them. And so you can build very powerful dashboards which can do very good storytelling. The other reason why people move towards these dashboards are because they are interactive. So let me explain the meaning of this interactive. The central idea over here is that whenever you see a particular chart, you also have the option to click. And when you click, only that piece of the data will be highlighted. And all other charts can also be modified based on that one click. So that's the power of interactivity, which you do not very easily get in tools like Python or Excel. The interactivity is not really there. Whereas Tableau and Power BI give you very, very extensive interactivity. So that's the reason why one of these tools also becomes important to learn. At Scalar, our focus is on teaching Tableau, and the simple reason behind that is, firstly, Tableau has almost around 50% market share. So Power BI and Tableau have almost equal market shares. But the idea we prefer Tableau is because Tableau is cross-platform. Power BI basically belongs to Microsoft. So they basically advocate you to have other Microsoft tools as well. Whereas Tableau, there is no such thing. Tableau can work in your MacBooks and Apple also, as well as in Microsoft. Whereas Power BI only works in Windows. So that's one big drawback that we see. And that's why Tableau is the choice with which we teach at Scalar. But again, I want to just call out that if you know any one of these tools, you are good to go, right? Because the skills are pretty much transferable. If you can work with one, you can easily work with the other as well. And I will make a very simple point for this. Very simple point. The point is that you can learn very sophisticated tools and technologies, but that doesn't mean you will become a good dashboard creator or good storyteller. And the simple reason behind that is ultimately you have to choose the right data. You have to choose the right kind of charts and visualizations to show in your dashboard. If those charts and visualizations themselves are not good, then the point itself is defeated, right? Would you agree with the point that I've just made, guys? Would you agree with what I'm saying? Okay, I'll give you a very simple example for this again. I'll give you a very simple example. So for creating charts, there are many different possibilities that are there. Like, for example, there's a chart called as histogram. There's something called as a line chart. There's bar chart. Okay. All these different kinds of charts are available. And in Tableau, you can use any of these. The problem is knowing how to create these charts is an important skill, no doubt about it. But it is nothing compared to the skill of choosing the right chart based on the data that you're looking at. If there's a situation which requires histogram, but you are using line chart instead of it, the purpose gets defeated, right? So we at Scalar have a very heavy focus on teaching this aspect, that what is the right kind of chart to choose for a particular kind of visualization. If you have this kind of data, if you have customer data, and this is what you want to know, what chart would you use or choose for that particular situation? So this is something that we focus very heavily at Scalar, and not just at one level, at multiple levels and phases. When you will learn Excel, that will be first time when we will talk about this particular thing. When you will learn Tableau, we will again talk about this. When you will go ahead and learn, let's say, Python, matplotlib library, we will again be talking about this. So we keep repeating on this particular aspect so that you become very good with identifying different situations. And by the way, what I'm telling you right now is also very important from interview cracking perspective. The interviewer will be less interested in knowing how good you are with different functionalities of Tableau. I'm not saying they'll never be interested in it, but they will always be more interested in your fundamentals of choosing the right kind of visualization or right kind of chart. For example, they'll give you a scenario. They'll say, okay, we want to analyze all the product categories and we want to know how many orders are we getting for each and every category. So what kind of chart will be a good choice for this situation? So I want you all to also give it a try in the chat. Let's see what answers do you guys come up with, right? So the question is, for different product categories, for various product categories, by product categories, we mean, some products are beauty products, some products are kitchen products, all the categories you see on Amazon typically. So for various product categories, which chart should you use to analyze orders? So I think I could have framed the question better, but I'll just quickly repeat myself. The idea that I'm trying to ask over here is that to understand for various product categories by order, which category is getting how many orders. So we want to basically analyze number of orders for each product category. Which graph would be a better choice? So again, I've seen many different answers in the chat, but what I can tell you is one answer is obviously not correct. You can choose many different, there can be many different possibilities, but typically speaking, the bar chart makes a lot of sense because for each category, you can have a different bar. Okay. And the height of the bar will indicate the number of orders. If your answer is anything like line chart, histogram, those are absolutely wrong answers. That's what I can tell you, right? Another answer that I would agree with over here is some people have called out pie chart, even that is appropriate. But anything like histogram, line chart is wrong. And why they are wrong is beyond the scope of this discussion. But I'm just giving you guys a quick reality check of, the fact that if this is not something that you're good with, then knowing sophisticated scenarios in Tableau and Power BI is of no use, right? Because ultimately you have to become good with the fundamental stuff first, and then only it makes sense to move on to the other things, right? That's a small point that I wanted to make with this quick discussion. Okay, cool. So now let's go ahead and start understanding about some other things as well. But what we will quickly do is, before we move ahead with this discussion, we will take a very quick break. Okay. Let me give you a quick scenario of what we will be covering after the break, right? So first, let me quickly talk about what our next piece of discussion is going to be about. We will continue talking about what are the other kinds of tools and technologies one needs to learn to become a data analyst and also eventually a data scientist. We'll go and have a deeper discussion of what sets a data scientist apart. Basically, our discussion in the second half will be more around machine learning, artificial intelligence, because these are the kind of skills one needs to become a data scientist. We'll also see what are the various resources that one can refer to learn all these different tools and technologies. We'll talk about some different websites where you can find good data sets, different websites where you can find how other people are using data science and how you can inspire from that and learn. And we'll also understand what machine learning, artificial intelligence generally is, so that you get some motivation about the topic and also figure out some good resources around you that you can use to learn about all these different things. So that is what the discussion is going to be for the next half of the class. So what I'll be doing now is I'll be asking my co-host to take over while I take a small short break of couple of minutes, right? My co-host would want to go ahead and talk to you guys, engage with you guys, and show you a couple of things. Okay, great. I'll see you all very soon.
Uh, Once again, thank you so much, Pulkit. Guys, by the time Pulkit has taken a short break, what we will do is we will quickly address few concerns that we have seen throughout the event that people are asking us for. Will we get these certificates? Yes, guys, you'll be getting the certificate. The link of the certificates will be shared in the WhatsApp groups that you guys are already part of. Okay. Uh, I am I'm a class 10 student. Is the session suitable for me? Mayank, what I'll highly recommend is this particular event that we are doing is for the transition from a non-data science to data science role. If you're a person who wants to know more about data science, yes, you can sit back and listen to us. But ideally, the session was arranged for the people who are, maybe a working professional or they're done with the college. Okay, but still, if you're interested, you can sit and obviously enjoy the session and learn more about data science. Again, I've already answered this. I come from a non-technical background. In graduation, I did Hindi honors, and past few months I did data analytic course. So does I still can become a data scientist? Most importantly, some companies choosing technical people over non-technical as they did. I'll tell you one thing, like what we have seen here at Scalar is there are people who are coming from, irrespective of whatever background they're coming in, if they have a right skill set and a right guidance, they are able to crack a job into a data science field. Okay. So that is always there. Don't think just because I'm coming from a tier three college, you can search about, different people. There is a page called Scalar Review. You can check people coming from a non-IT field. How did they meet these transition? So you can actually go ahead and check all of these data. Okay, that will be something you'll get an idea. Yes, definitely there is a point. You will face little difficulty because you are coming from a non-IT field, but it's just that if you have a right guidance, it will be much more easier, right? You can take up a course or things like that, depends totally on you. Guys, I can see that a lot of people who are asking personalized question. So I am from this particular background, I want to get into this. I got a lot of messages, and also in the chat section, if you see in the questions tab, there are a lot of questions who are providing, who are asking us about how we can help them in their growth, or maybe in general how we can help. Please understand it, in this way it will become difficult for us to address these questions. So what I will do is I'll quickly launch a poll for you guys. If you're interested in speaking to the career counselor one-on-one, just say yes for this callback poll. Best thing about this poll is we are not charging any money for this. Whatever question you have, I have 15 years of experience, 4 years of experience, 3 years of experience, any question you have, feel free to talk to them over a one-on-one call. So, for example, Satish, just I got a message from him. I guess everybody is able to see. I have 16 years of experience in IT. How difficult it is to switch into data science if non-coding tech. Please understand, question like these can be only addressed by someone who's a professional in giving career advices. Because understand, I will be a person, I will say definitely you can make a switch, but please understand that 16 years of experience comes with a lot of value, right? So I may say, the right way for me to approach to this question will be to sit and understand what kind of a career transition you're looking for before I give you any career related answer, right? So everybody's journey is very different than others, right? So my journey, Satish journey, or Neha's journey, everyone's journey will be really different than each other's, right? So please say yes for this callback poll if you are interested in knowing the complete journey to the field of software development. Also, some of you have been asking questions like, what skill should I focus on upscaling, or is there something that I can actually do to stand my CV? So I quickly want to upgrade, update you about one of the upgrades that we have made to one of our programs recently. In this session, we have a lot of people who are more, professionally experienced than other. For them, we have this advanced AI and ML program. This is designed for those who already have a coding experience, want to dive deeper into AI engineering. This session comes with an additional certificate module from IIT Roorkee, where you will be getting a hands-on with the real projects like LLM, RAG, even having a optional campus immersion at IIT Roorkee. CAC IIT Roorkee certification course included with the Scalar AI ML program. This certification module is also available as an additional upgrade with Scalar courses, both of which will be accessible after 9 months into the program. If you have any question about that, also please feel free to say yes to the callback polls. Thank you so much, guys, for engaging with the poll. I love the way that you interacted with it. And also, I will quickly share the WhatsApp group link before we, pass the session back to Pulkit. Guys, why I'm sharing the WhatsApp group link? Because, there are a lot of people who are asking for notes. Please understand the notes will be shared in the WhatsApp group. What I will recommend is please join the group and sit back and wait for us to share the notes, right? So I will just okay. Amazing. Thank you so much, guys, for listening to me. And if there is, like, if you want to know more about our software development career or any other analytical career, there is a session that is taken by Naman Bhalla, who is one of our lead instructor. He takes this particular event. If you're interested, you can register. It's a free guidance to Scalar AI/ML program and everything else. Recording we don't provide. I'm really sorry about it. I will now quickly pass the session to Pulkit, and rest of all of these questions I will be taking, in a couple of more minutes, like once the question, the event is done. Thank you so much, and Pulkit, please take it over from here.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I will proceed with the session, guys. So let's get back to the topic in hand. And we had so far talked about a lot of details pertaining to the data analyst role, right? We had identified the various tools that one needs to learn. Now, going ahead, we will start talking about the following details. We will start going more into the journey of a data scientist, what a data scientist typically does. But before we do that, there are one or two small points that I need to cover from a data analyst perspective to just make it complete and holistic. And then we will start with the data science aspect of things. So from a data analyst aspect, we've already learned about the skills you need, which is SQL and Python. And if you remember, I had put a lot of focus on identifying the right kind of graphs over here, right? And why was this important? Because apart from the tools we learn, we also have to learn the skill of being able to perform EDA. And EDA basically means exploratory data analysis, right? So what this is not really a tool. This is not a tool, but this is the end goal of what we are trying to do using the tools that are available to us, like SQL, Python, Tableau. So we want to essentially be able to explore the data and find insights from that data. right? So the focus has to be on being able to not just learn how the tool needs to be used, but draw relevant, important, and useful information from data using this idea of exploratory data analysis. Okay, with that, we'll move into the data science section now. And if you remember, in the very beginning, I defined data science as data analyst plus much more. So now we will start talking about this much more part. What this much more part is all about. Let's see. So think about it like this, that the much more part, essentially what this much more part entails is things like machine learning, things like AI or artificial intelligence, okay? And that itself can have many domains within it, like CV, which is called as computer vision. I know people will very soon be saying, can you write the full form of CV and all that? It will come later. Don't worry about it. I'm just handing out a couple of things. And there's another thing called as NLP, which basically stands for natural language processing. Okay. We'll soon be discussing about these things, not to worry. But overall, the focus heavily becomes on machine learning. And the idea is that now we really need to understand what machine learning is all about. So what machine learning is doing for us is it is helping us in performing a very specific part of analytics, which is called as predictive analytics. So let's talk about this. What do we mean by this term called as predictive analytics? So far, the analytics that we have studied or understood is all about looking at the data and finding out what the data is trying to tell us, which is basically the EDA part that we discussed in the very last section of the previous page. But what is this new kind of analytics called as predictive analytics? Well, this segment of analytics focuses on looking at the past and predicting the future, which means can we somehow analyze and find out what is going to happen in the future? And I hope you can see the value in it. If you can somehow predict what's going to happen in the future, you kind of have this superpower now, right? You can now find out what will happen and you can take the right kind of steps if what's going to happen is not in your favor, or you can be prepared to see if what's happening is in your favor, you can again take the right kinds of steps. Knowing future itself is a great superpower. So how do you do this? Well, you do this for various different reasons. Let's identify some of the reasons why we would want to do it. We will probably be interested in predicting, let's say, we might be interested in predicting future price of a product. Okay. How? Maybe there's a very high demand for this product, so maybe we can raise the price. Or maybe if the demand of the product is low, we can reduce the price so that people will get more interested in buying it. Similarly, we can also, if you're a bank, you can try to predict future fraud. And this can be very, very powerful. This was one of the tasks, one of the important tasks that I was working on when I was with Meesho, which was to predict fraud. Okay, Meesho faces a lot of different kinds of fraud from the customers as well as the suppliers. So one of the problems I solved was in terms of solving the fraud part. Okay, so that's the predict fraud part. You might also be interested in predicting people's sentiment, whether people will like a new product that is launched or not. So anything that you do in terms of finding the future outcome, that is what is predictive analytics. And the way you enable predictive analytics is through this thing called as machine learning or ML. Okay, so this is essentially what ML is. I have just given you a very brief definition of what ML is all about. Machine learning is basically something that helps in identifying patterns in the given data so that you can take some calls for future data, so that you can make some predictions over the future data. That is what this is all about. Suman, the timeline part we will be discussing sometime later. Okay, so anything that is related to how much time it's going to take to transition from DA to DS, we will talk about it. Don't worry. Okay, cool. So we'll talk about it later. So coming back to the ML part again. So now, what does it take to become good with the skill of ML? How do you learn ML, or how does one learn ML? Let's try to understand that. All right. So first, I will talk about the different kinds of tools and technologies one can learn. Okay. And we will also talk about the various freely available resources that one can refer to learn about this particular skill. So from a tools and technology perspective, I have already mentioned earlier that you need to be good with Python and you need to learn some specific libraries, namely the important ones are sklearn. Okay. By the way, learning these libraries will always have a dependence on the data analyst libraries. That's why I keep saying that for this field, you all have to be a data analyst first and then you become a data scientist, which means to learn sklearn library in Python, it is important that you already know NumPy and Pandas. Okay. Once you learn these, then only you transition towards sklearn. That's very, very important. Cool. So now, with respect to this, let's go ahead and find out what could be some great places to learn about machine learning. What could be some great resources for learning machine learning. So let me break down these resources in two parts. Okay. Part number one will be some books. Okay. Because I see a lot of people are interested in reading books. So I will call out some books. The other part will be some YouTube channels where one can go and study about machine learning. Okay, so let me call these things out very, very quickly. First, we will talk about the books where you can learn. And when I say learn, I'm essentially talking about the theory. And one might say, okay, why are we fussing so much about theory? Why can't we directly do the practical? Why can't we write code, or why can't we actually apply machine learning to a real case study? We will get there. But it's important to know the theory, because theory enables you to choose the right kind of tools and technologies. Okay. For example, if you want to go to the gym and you want to build your biceps, there are 10 different kinds of dumbbells available. You have to be smart enough to understand which kind of dumbbell will be ideal for a particular kind of exercise. That is exactly what theory of machine learning is all about. Having a sense of different kinds of algorithms that are available, and then being smart to identify for a given problem which algorithm to use. Okay, I hope this makes sense to everyone. So to understand theory, first we will understand the books that can be ideal. And in books, there are many, many different books that are available, right? But bearing in mind, some books have passed the test of time. What I mean by that is there are certain books which have stayed relevant even after a very long time, after the field of machine learning has gone through so much transition. One such book is Intro to Statistical Learning. Okay. And this is a book that is written by Stanford professors. Okay. Stanford University professors. There's one small drawback of this book, and that drawback is that this book is based on the R language. Okay. So while that is a drawback, the thing about R language is that, again, R is also very similar to Python. So you will not have a very difficult time in translating it from one language to the other. But the basic principles that are described, or the basic fundamental ideas of machine learning that are described, they are anyways irrelevant of the underlying language. So what you use this book is for you to understand theory of machine learning, right? This is the book that I highly recommend. There's one book by O'Reilly. I'm forgetting the exact name, but it is something like Data Science with Python. Something like that. I'm really not able to recall the exact name of the book, but the author is basically O'Reilly. So you can look it up online. You will be able to find it. This book is specifically targeted for learning all the machine learning algorithms with respect to Python. So they have practical examples using Python for all the different algorithms of machine learning. Now, apart from books, what I feel is that machine learning requires a lot of visual appeal, which means algorithms can be best understood if somebody is explaining them on either a whiteboard or through some great visualizations. And over here, I have a couple of channels that I would like to recommend and some free resources. So let me call these out very quickly. One channel which is my absolute favorite is StatQuest, because of the very nature in which this particular guy teaches machine learning. StatQuest will be one such channel. Apart from StatQuest, I would also recommend 3 Blue, 1 Brown, especially for understanding any of the math behind machine learning. Okay, a lot of people are always interested in knowing more of the math, and I also feel it's important to understand it because it will help you to make better decisions when you're using these different algorithms. So 3 Blue, 1 Brown, very, very interesting channel. They have a lot of visualizations through which they explain different kinds of algorithms, and their focus is a lot on neural networks and deep learning. So they focus a lot on deep learning and neural networks. So that's another thing that I would recommend. Apart from this, you can also refer to the Scalar YouTube channel. Over here as well, we talk about the various different machine learning algorithms. Some of our top instructors are always uploading YouTube videos that can be very, very helpful. And not just this, Scalar YouTube is one resource which is absolutely free to use, but there is another resource from Scalar which is free to use as well. All it requires is a sign up, and what I'm talking about is Scalar Topics. So Scalar has a free resource website where you can log in and learn about various different technologies, various different tech topics, right? Technology topics. One of them definitely being data science and machine learning. So you can go and refer to all these different platforms to learn about it, and you can create or curate a free journey for yourself, right? These are some of the recommendations that I have. Okay, so now that this is done, let me also break down how a typical journey for learning different ML topics can look like, because machine learning in itself is a very, very complicated thing, right? So much can come under the umbrella of machine learning, and there are so many different things to pick up. So my idea over here would be to start with the fundamentals of learning all the different machine learning algorithms, especially the basic ones first. So your journey typically should be as follows, and then you can make it up for all the different kinds of YouTube channels that I've recommended, how you want to go about with it. But the journey has to begin in the following manner. First, you will definitely need to know a little bit of mathematics, okay, which means you have to be good with two kinds of topics first. One will be probability and statistics, and the other would be knowing a little bit of calculus. Now I know when you read these terms and words, it can come off as very, very overwhelming, right? A lot of people might not even have taken up mathematics in their 11th and 12th class or in their high school. That's very much possible. But what I can tell you is, and this is true for most things in life, right? If you don't like a particular topic, you are not to be blamed, your teacher is to be blamed, right? Which means oftentimes in education, the biggest problem is the way a particular topic is taught, okay? If probability and statistics and calculus were taught in an interesting way, then none of us will have a problem understanding these topics. So that's why, again, the resources that I've mentioned become quite important. And we at Scalar also strive to teach these topics in the simplest manner possible. We do start the ML journey with these topics first, and we take our time to make sure you guys get good with this topic before we start moving towards other topics like machine learning. So once you're done with this basics of math, I can also give you some recommendations here for what are some good places to learn these topics. Khan Academy is an excellent source of learning anything related to mathematics. Okay. Very, very popular, again, very popular YouTube channel and website. You can refer to it. Free, absolutely free resource. And once you're done with these topics, then you are ready to start moving into machine learning or ML. And when it comes to ML, first, it's very important to get done with the basics of all the different algorithms that are available. You should start learning about regression. You should start learning about decision trees. You should start learning about something called as SVM or support vector machines. Okay. Let me write down the full form before somebody says what is the full form. Okay. These are the various different kinds of algorithms that you can study. And you should also start understanding the application of these algorithms, which means what are the kind of problems where we can use regression? What are the kind of problems where we can use all these various algorithms? Start understanding the basics of those things. Once the basics become clear, then you are ready to go ahead and apply your knowledge on some real data. And this is where knowing a place where you can actually find data and can perform case studies comes into the play, right? So the very first resource that I want to provide you over here is Kaggle. Okay. Kaggle is a resource for getting data. You can find free data sets over here. Okay. And let me tell you, this is again something which is very underrated. A lot of people do not value something when they see that data sets are available for free. But I can tell you that in niche industries like pharmaceutical, finance, actually people, there's a complete business around selling data. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but people literally sell data to pharmaceutical companies for very, very expensive, which means data in itself is also a commodity. It is a blessing that you can access certain kinds of data sets for free. Okay. So that's what becomes really important over here when it comes to having access to these data sets. Now, these data sets are not only relevant from data science perspective, they are also very relevant from data analytics perspective. You can go on this website, see the data sets, and even see people's solution in Python, how people are using Python to solve problems using this data, how they are analyzing data, how they are performing machine learning algorithms on this data. All of this is absolutely freely available. And the way it works is it's very similar to any social media websites where people will upvote solutions given by various peoples, and whichever solution people like the most, it will be highest upvoted and it will be available at the very top. Okay, so you can access all these different data sets from this website. In case you don't know, this website Kaggle is actually owned by Google. So even on Kaggle, you will see a lot of free courses running to teach data analytics and data science. There will be courses running time to time on how you can analyze a data set with Python. They will show you with an example. Similarly, they will show you with an example how you can run a basic machine learning algorithm on a data set. All these things can be done very well using tool like Kaggle. Okay, so that's one resource that again that I wanted to provide you guys before we proceed further. Now, with respect to machine learning, I have already called out the fact that you can get data sets on Kaggle. And typically, when we talk about data sets, typically, I'm not saying always, typically, your data sets can be broken down into two flavors. One is structured data, and the other is unstructured data. Your structured data is basically what you use to apply your typical traditional machine learning. But on unstructured data, what has been seen is your machine learning algorithms do not perform so well. And this is where your deep learning and neural networks become really, really important. So the reason why one needs to also learn deep learning as a data scientist is because you will not always be dealing with structured data. You will often be dealing with unstructured data also. Now, question could be, what do we mean by unstructured data? Well, unstructured data simply means data like text and images and videos. Basically, data that you cannot typically capture in your tables of Excel sheets, right? All that kind of data basically comes under unstructured category. And when you are learning deep learning, your libraries like PyTorch and Keras become very important. I've already mentioned them above, but I'm again mentioning these. PyTorch, Keras. Again, you just need to learn any one of these. Learning both is not mandatory because both these are used to accomplish the exact same goal or target. So these are the libraries you need to learn, and the kind of problems that you're solving using deep learning typically come under the banner of NLP, which somebody had asked earlier. and it means natural language processing. Okay, if you guys remember earlier, I used this term called as NLP. The full form is natural language processing, and we also have computer vision, which is used to analyze image and video data. So CV stands for computer vision. Reason why I'm calling out these terms to you guys is because knowing this helps you in creating a specialization also for yourself. What I mean by that is that ultimately you might have an inclination towards one kind of problems, and for that sometimes there are these specialist kind of rules available. See, when you call somebody a data analyst, the expectation is they are well-rounded people who understand machine learning, deep learning, and everything, and they can do experiments quickly with different kinds of problems given to them. On the other hand, somebody can also specifically become natural language processing engineer, which means NLP engineer or computer vision engineer, right? And the focus then becomes that you will be working entirely on solving problems that revolve in that particular domain. So it's totally your choice what you want to do. But I personally feel you should always start from a journalist perspective and slowly gravitate towards what you like more. At Scalar, the way the curriculum is structured is after we teach you the fundamentals of ML, and when it comes for the time to teach you the other versions of ML, the advanced versions like deep learning, we basically give everybody a choice at that time to decide whether they want to go for a specialization in natural language or computer vision. And the idea is that you get access to both, but you can graduate in one of them and you can specialize in one of them. So you learn all the fundamentals, but focus on becoming master or crafting specialization in any one of these. So that's the way we proceed in our curriculum as well. Just a thing that I thought I should call out. Okay. Apart from this, there is also other areas of machine learning or predictive analytics focus, which can be quite important in terms of the kind of problems that are solved using these areas. One is recommender systems. So the reason why I did not write them under ML is because they themselves are very specialized libraries. They have a good relation with all the machine learning, but they also work very differently from typical machine learning, right? And the idea behind recommendation system essentially is that take an example of OTT platform like Hotstar or YouTube for that matter. YouTube is always trying to continuously show you different videos that you might be interested in. That's called as recommendation. Okay, just give me 1 second. Sorry, everyone. Okay. So recommendation systems can be very useful from that perspective. They will help you to increase customer retention, right? They will make sure that your customer is always having content. Okay, and not just content, even companies like Amazon, Flipkart, Walmart can use recommendation systems to recommend products to customers so that you also benefit by buying the right products, okay, that you might be interested in, and company benefits because they are able to increase the profit margin by making you buy more things. So everybody benefits, right? So that's the purpose of this field of recommendation systems. We dedicate a complete a complete section in our curriculum of data science on recommendation system itself, because we have seen a lot of companies are interested in people who know this, and at the same time, people themselves are also very interested in learning about recommendation systems. So that itself becomes a very, very specific topic. And apart from that, because we are very, very fast moving towards this area of generative AI, that itself becomes an area that one needs to be familiar with, okay, especially as a data scientist of today, because this is a field that gains vast popularity for learning to be able to build tools like chatbots, right? Your chatbots are today's chatbots are heavily relying on this technology behind generative AI. We have already discussed earlier what are the different libraries that would be important for you to learn if you want to learn about generative AI. But it is also equally important to understand the theory behind this as well, which means you learn about attention models, right? There's something called as attention models. Again, so a lot of things over here are correlated. The field of generative AI is very heavily correlated. Just a second. it's very heavily correlated with the field of deep learning. Okay, deep learning has a very heavy correlation with this field of generative AI. So again, if you want to learn the theory of this, your three blue, one brown is a great channel to learn all the theories behind generative AI. Other channels that I feel, other YouTube resources that I feel have done a good job at talking about topics in generative AI again are StatQuest, right? They've made some excellent videos to talk more about generative AI kind of topics, right? So here again, you have a choice whether you want to become somebody who crafts very individual generative AI products, or do you want to be able to build products using this technology? I'll give you a very small distinction over here. Companies like Google, Amazon, Facebook, they will be interested in building their own GPTs, right? So if you want to learn that kind of technology, you have to be very good with deep learning, because to be able to build your own generative AI, you have to be good with deep learning. But let's say if you're only interested in building chatbot for different companies, then learning about generative AI in depth might not be so important for you, but just using it from an application perspective will be important. And over there, what I would recommend is learn about this technology called as RAG. Okay, you can search this on YouTube and you will see many different videos will pop up. RAG basically means retrieval augmented generation. Okay, so you can, instead of writing retrieval augmented generation, because that itself is very confusing, I will leave it at RAG, because when you search generative AI RAG, you will understand what this is all about. So that's another technology that you can learn to build applications using generative AI without diving too deep into being able to fine tune AI or build your own generative AI. So it again depends on your goals. If you are more interested in working for these big tech giants, they will expect you to be able to build and craft your own generative AI. On the other hand, if you want to build applications, if you want to work for companies that want to build applications using generative AI, then it's important to get familiarized with technologies like RAG. Okay, so everybody with me so far? Are you guys understanding everything that I've talked about? So far what I've done is I've crafted a journey for all of you to understand the different tools and technologies that are important to learn to become a data analyst and as well as a data scientist. So analyst part we had already covered, and now we are talking about the data scientist part. Now, one final thing that I want to call out as a skill that is important to learn, because even after learning all of this, I've seen people not being able to clear interviews or showcase themselves as a well-rounded data scientist. And what stops them at this point is this thing called as MLOps, or machine learning operations. So I will quickly talk about this part as well, right? As this also makes a very, very important aspect of this entire ecosystem, or becoming an end-to-end data scientist or a well-rounded data scientist. So I want everybody to listen to this part very carefully, because I'll be sharing some very important details about this, right? This is an area where I see a lot of people face trouble. So ML operations basically is a field where you productionize your machine learning solutions and deploy your machine learning solutions. Let me talk about this. So I will take an example of a problem solved using machine learning, and then we'll figure out how it can be deployed or productionized, or why it is important to productionize it. So let's say today you build a recommendation system. You write code for creating a recommendation system. Okay. And what this recommendation system does is it reads all the different products that are available. Okay. And it generates recommendations based on whatever product a customer selects. Now, on the surface, this sounds good. The problem is that this is not something that you can just build once and forget about it. Can you give me a reason why building it once and forgetting is not a good idea? Let's say you build a recommendation system and now you forget about it. What could be the problems with something like that? Let's see if you guys can answer this question. Okay, I see answers like the recommendations will become obsolete or outdated. What I want to know from you guys is, why will that be the case? Why do you think they will become outdated? What's the problem? Okay, so I see a lot of answers are around customers' behavior will change, trend will change. So my answer over here is, you're not entirely wrong, but these models are capable of adapting to these kind of changing behaviors also. But there's even a bigger problem there. The trend itself is not the biggest problem. There are some other problems also that are there that need to be tackled, and there are other reasons as well why just building a model once is not good enough. I'll give you a very, very simple idea for that. A very simple one. When you build a model, you're relying on X amount of data. So let's say you are relying on data X to build the model. And after, let's say, a month, new products have been added to this data, which means X products were there and new products Y have been added, and some suppliers were not able to do good business, so they have gone. So there's also minus Z. Now the problem, if you just continue with one model is what, or one data set is that you will keep recommending products which maybe are not even present on the platform. Basically products like Z. They've already left the platform. I hope this situation is clear to everybody. That a particular supplier was not able to do good business, or maybe they are not able to manufacture that product anymore. It is out of stock, whatever could be the reason, and that product itself is not available. But the problem with your model is, or your recommendation system is, it is still recommending the same product. That's one problem. The other problem is that maybe new suppliers have also come into the system, but your recommendation system will never be recommending it. That is also a problem, because you're never giving these new Y products a chance to appear in the recommendations. So that's why any model that you build is a continuous process, not just of creating the model, but also continuously updating the data. So there are problems like data versioning, data changes, pattern changes, right? To incorporate all these problems, you have to basically carry out building models in a way where they are continuously updating based on the recent data, recent changes or behavior of customer, and so on and so forth. And all this basically comes under machine learning operations. So machine learning operations helps you to firstly put this particular model that you have built and expose it to your customer, so that the model doesn't just sit in your computer, it is available for other people to use or available to the company to use. They can put it on the website and use it. The other reason is that you need to continuously keep upgrading the model as well. So to be able to learn all of this, it becomes important to learn one of the cloud technologies and being able to deploy your machine learning models on the cloud, which means it becomes important to learn any one cloud, maybe GCP, AWS, Azure, any one for that matter, just to get familiarized with how deployment works. Okay. And within this, there are specific services within these clouds that are available that are used for deploying and using machine learning models and deep learning models. So for example, the service within GCP is called as Vertex AI. Whereas the service within Azure AWS is called as SageMaker. So again, I'm just throwing some terms in front of you guys. You can always look up these terms and find about these. But this is one major area. This whole idea of ML ops is one area which I've seen many good data scientists also not being able to be good at. And this then later creates a huge problem for them, because what ends up happening is that they are not able to, show this particular skill to their prospective employer, and that's why they are unable to crack interviews. So it is also very important to become good at this. Now that we have discussed so many different things, it's very important to also discuss in short a brief timeline of how long it's going to take to learn all these technologies, right? There's so much that I've covered right now, if you think about it. So how much time do you think it is required to study everything from the beginning till end? What is your idea? How long do you guys think it will take? So again, speed will vary for different people, right? Speed will vary for different people. But on an average, I believe it's going to take about 1 to 1.5 years, right? Now, there will be people who can learn it faster. Kudos to them. But given the fact that we already hold jobs, other roles and responsibilities, and we have to learn these things in parallel, it is going to take a little bit of time. And which means it's very important to build that basic patience around learning all of this. Good thing is that you don't have to wait for the completion of 1 year to see results. What that means is once you learn SQL, I have seen so many of my students go and apply for jobs and start getting jobs, which means SQL in itself will enable you to apply for roles like data analyst. And nothing like being able to start working as a data analyst and then continue studying all the other topics that you have. Okay. I'm not saying that this is always the case. A lot of people, some people get the jobs. Most people do not crack jobs until they at least spend 5 to 6 months studying all the data analyst topics and then start applying for jobs. But after SQL, many jobs will open up. Start giving interviews, see how you perform in those interviews, and slowly you will start gaining the confidence to crack these interviews. Okay. At Scalar, we very heavily focus on making sure that after each and every module that you do, be it SQL or Python or NumPy Pandas or machine learning, we expose to you guys a test that you need to pass, which ensures and gives you credibility that, okay, you have become good with this particular topic. Another thing that we do is we give you the opportunity to give mock interview to industry experts, which means after you have signed up, you can go and give mock interviews. You can, within the Scalar dashboard, you can select that, okay, I'm interested in giving a mock interview. I'm good with this topic now. I believe I'm good. So you can select an industry expert and a one-on-one interview will be booked for you with that industry expert. And they will take a 1 hour interview with you and you will get a reality check whether you are ready to go and apply for jobs or not. At the very least, it will give you the reality check of understanding how much more you need to study, what topics you are already becoming good at, and that way you will be able to become good with things. Other than these mock interviews, there will always be case studies that we will be doing after each and every module, which means that after all the theory is done, after all the module test and mock interviews are done, you will also be applying the knowledge that you have acquired on a case study, which means we will provide you a data set. Okay. And you will use that data set to analyze that data based on the skill you learn. For example, if you are learning the machine learning module, you will be applying machine learning on a data set we provide you and solve a problem end to end. Okay. And that way you will get more exposure on understanding how good or bad you are at applying a skill in real time. Right. So all these different things will help you to build your entire portfolio. That's just the Scalar way of doing things. But again, it's totally up to you what kind of journey you want to take. I do remember that a lot of people had been asking this question again. I saw where they missed the opportunity of getting in touch with the counselors for one-on-one consultation to know and craft a journey for them. So if you are somebody who missed out that, what I will be doing is I will be launching the poll for you guys one more time. In case you want to get in touch with these counselors, you can very well go ahead and get in touch with them. And you can select yes if you want to talk to them and get that clarity of thought and also see if this really is a field for you or not, right? They will analyze your background, they will analyze your motivation, they'll analyze what your aspirations are. And based on that, they will give you a feedback and they will give you a journey. They'll craft a path for you as to how you can go ahead and learn data science as well as data analysis. Okay. So, while you guys are going through the poll, I'll be waiting for a few minutes. And what I will be doing after this is I will be answering some of the most upvoted questions, right? So I will be answering some of the most upvoted questions. And after I do that, I also have a small request with all of you. The request is that I would want you guys to, after I'm done with the lecture and after I'm done with answering your questions, I have a humble request, and that request is that there will be a couple of polls that you will see on your screen. These polls are basically to analyze or understand how this particular masterclass has gone. Basically, we will be collecting feedback from you to understand whether you found it okay or not. Okay. So please, I have a humble request to stay back till that particular poll is launched. Okay. So, all right, before we go to that, let me go ahead and try to answer some questions. Okay. I see in the chat a question has popped up. Data science has become very competitive nowadays. Is it worth starting from scratch? Okay, that's a great question. So, my answer to that question would be that data science has always been very competitive. Let me be very honest. Okay, data science was always a very, very competitive field. Okay, and there were always different challenges that people were facing. What I can tell you is the field definitely transforms with time. And today, the emerging technologies like generative AI have become very important and have become more prominent in terms of new roles have been created around these technologies. So definitely it's worth getting into the field, because anything that we were doing prior, we still need more and more people to be able to accomplish those tasks and be able to generate models, create models, solve problems like fraud, solve problems like sentiment analysis. So that's not going to go away anytime soon. So despite the fact that the field is competitive, and if you think about it, every field is competitive, right? You just have to be really good at what you do. So there is no room for anybody who wants to get it easy. If that's the expectation with data science, then that's not the right path for you. Anything that you're doing, it's going to take hard work, it's going to take patience and perseverance. So you have to be prepared for it. I would very highly recommend that you should do it for the passion of the field, right? And for the outcomes that it generates, not just for the fact that, okay, there is very good money in the field. That's not the best way to choose a career path. You should really try to see whether it is something that you would really like to do for your life, or at least for the next couple of years at the very least, and then go ahead in the field. And like I said, you should start slow and gradual. That itself will start telling you whether you like things or not. If you're directly jumping at something like deep learning, it will just drive you crazy. So always good to start with something like data analysis, work with some data sets, see whether you like it or not, and then go into the field. Let me see some other questions as well. Actual day-to-day task of a data scientist and what organizations expect. Okay, I feel I've kind of covered those things in the session today, but day-to-day task will involve typically being able to do exploratory data analysis. So what I can tell you is you will be spending a good 70 to 80% of your time working on the quality of data, because unfortunately data is not in a shape where you can go ahead and perform machine learning on top of it. That's the unfortunate reality, okay, of data, which means a good 60 to 70% of time will be spent on cleaning data, processing data, which means you'll be doing what a data analyst does, typically speaking, right? At least for a good 60 to 70% chunk. And for the rest, you will be using it to build models, analyze models, put those models in production. So that's typically how the responsibility part looks like. Okay. And there's a lot of analysis that goes into analyzing the models you have created or not also, right? There can be so many problems with the model you have created. Your team will collectively sit and analyze whether this is worthy of going into production or not. And once those decisions are made, things will go into production. So what I can tell you is typically it takes around a good 4 to 6 months for any model to go into production from beginning till end, analyzing data, building data pipelines, doing exploratory data analysis, etc., etc. Okay. Let me see some other questions as well. Okay, this is a great question. So somebody has asked how to not lose the job from AI in today's market. Okay, that's a good question, and my answer is twofold. One, be good at what you do. That's very, very important, right? If you think about it, I think IT was the only field, unfortunately, where people were also making money by not really doing something very productive or consistent. Like, I can ensure you all of you will have one or other friend who's in an IT job and doesn't really do much in their job, right? And we always get jealous. What I can tell you is this is not going to be the case in the next 5 years. Companies have become very sensitive to the fact that whether our workers are truly contributing or not. So one is be good, very good at what you do. That is going to be one reason why you will continue having a job. And AI taking away your job is not going to happen. Nobody is going to employ AI. But people who know AI will be employed to take away your jobs. And this is not just me saying it, I'm just echoing the words of Sam Altman, who's the creator of ChatGPT. I'm echoing words of founder of NVIDIA. So the idea is going to be that do not wait to
Yes.
upskill, which is also the motto here we have at Scalar. Continuously keep upskilling. That's the world we are living in, that you have to keep crafting yourself, right? Keep crafting your skills, and that way you will be able to retain a job and even back better jobs for that matter. Okay, cool. Let me answer maybe one last question. Let's see. Okay, Dhruv says, how's the current job opportunities for data science in 2025? I have read and heard that there's hiring freeze in data science and it's difficult to land a job. Appreciate your thoughts on this. Okay, I think again, we have partially answered this question in the previous response, but what you are saying is not entirely wrong if we are being completely honest. Yes, it's not just data science, by the way, but any field for that matter, there have been freezes. Like a freeze never happens by saying, oh, let's freeze data science jobs. Nobody does that, right? When they put a freeze, they'll put freeze on the any kind of job that a company has, any kind of opportunity. They will keep it like that till they are open to other kinds of roles and opportunities when they want to absorb more people. So I feel one reason why that has been the case is because of the recession that we were in. And I think that's going to be a matter of only a couple of more months now. Um, Finances are going to be eased by US, which means US is basically the driver of all these things, right? So once money starts flowing into the economy, more opportunities will 110% be created. And important thing is to be ready for that time. That is the most important thing. Money will flow at any point. You have to be ready to bag opportunities that open up at those instances. So that is what I would like to say. With that, I will be wrapping up today's session. I'm very, very thankful for everybody for attending the session and really glad that you guys took the time out to hear me out and do something for your own upskilling. But like I said, my humble request is it's not going to take more than 5 minutes. Last 5 minutes is all I'm asking you guys for.
But
There will be polls for
ये सर इतने
understanding
सारे
how
ना
this
जान पाए
masterclass went. So please provide your uh, provide your feedback into those polls and help us out so that we
ये
can keep
सत्य
bringing
सरेना
these
ये
kind of masterclasses to you in a much better way in the future. Okay.
लेना
With that, I will be signing off. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time.
Uber.
Once again, thank you so much, Pulkit, for taking the time to do the event today. It was wonderful. I hope everybody enjoyed the session. I could see throughout the event there were a lot of positive comments. Guys, please, this is a time to put those positive comments into numbers. Give us 10 if you feel that the session was a perfect 10 on 10, so that, these initiatives that we bring up will really help us to bring more such content, encourages us to give you more such content. If you feel, please understand we are doing this completely free of cost, so at least these feedbacks really help us to grow as an thinking wise, like, okay, it was a great event. Guys, we will be launching few more polls. The next poll that I'll be launching will be for the pace at which we had today's session. So we promised that we'll be able to complete it by around 9:30, 10. So we did that. If you feel that it is a 10 on 10 in that way, please give us a perfect 5 on 5. It really helps. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for engaging with the poll. There are two, after this poll, we have few more polls. It is really, thank you, Kunal. Uh,